1 year after first contact, Commander Ethan Riley stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, Earth's first interstellar vessel. Though humans had built it, the ship's core technology came from Valthran engineers. Riley couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and unease as he watched his crew prepare for humanity's maiden voyage to the Valthran homeworld. "Final systems check complete," Commander reported Lieutenant Susan Kelly, his second in command. "We're cleared for departure." Riley nodded. "Take us out, Lieutenant." The Endeavour lifted smoothly from the Kennedy Space Center as millions watched worldwide. Within minutes, they'd reached orbit. Then, using the Valthran fold drive, they'd vanished from Earth's sky, reappearing near Neptune almost instantly. "My God," whispered Kelly, staring at the view screen. "It actually works." The journey to the Valthran system took 3 days, rather than the centuries it would have required without alien technology. When they arrived, the human delegation gasped at the sight of massive orbital structures and countless ships surrounding the gleaming blue-green planet. Ambassador Nexer greeted them with ceremony when they docked at the main station. "Welcome to the heart of the consortium," he said. "You are only the 43rd species to visit us as partners." The humans were led to luxurious quarters, but Riley noticed the subtle security measures. Their access to the station was limited, their movements tracked. During official meetings, the Valthran representatives spoke of trade agreements, technology exchanges, and cultural understanding. Yet when Riley reviewed the proposed contracts, he found troubling imbalances. These mineral rights would give them access to nearly 30% of Earth's rare earth elements, he told Dr. Greg Nelson, the delegation's economic advisor. In exchange for technology that they completely control, Nelson finished. "We get to use it, not understand it." Back on Earth, similar patterns emerged. The Valthran established embassies in major cities and training centers to teach humans to operate, but not repair or modify, their advanced systems. Earth governments eagerly signed agreements, dazzled by immediate benefits, and ignored the long-term costs. Jack Powell, now heading a special communications division, expressed his concerns to Olivia Marsh during a secure meeting. "They're treating us like children," he said, "or worse, like resources to be managed." Marsh nodded grimly. "The UN is becoming dependent on Valthran arbitration for international disputes. Countries are competing for their favor. We're dividing ourselves for their convenience." On the Endeavour's return journey, Riley witnessed a disturbing incident. A young engineer, Maria Lopes, accidentally accessed a restricted section of the ship's computer while repairing a console. Before Riley could see what she'd discovered, 2 Valthran advisors quickly isolated the terminal. "A simple misunderstanding," the lead Valthran said smoothly. "Your engineer should be more careful." That evening, Lopes appeared at Riley's quarters, her face pale. "Commander, I saw something before they shut me out. Resource allocation plans for Earth. They've already divided our planet into extraction zones." Riley kept his expression neutral, but felt ice forming in his stomach. "Document everything you saw. Tell no one else." When the Endeavour returned to Earth, crowds celebrated the successful mission. Riley smiled for the cameras, but requested an urgent private meeting with Marsh and Powell. "They're not partners," he told them, sharing Lopez's findings. "They see us as a commodity." Powell wasn't surprised. "Their language has subtle hierarchical markers we missed initially. They never use terms that imply equality when referring to humans." Marsh's phone buzzed with a message. Her face darkened as she read it. "The Security Council just approved Valthran oversight of our nuclear arsenal," she said quietly. "For safety reasons." The three looked at each other, the same realization in their eyes. Humanity hadn't gained an ally. They'd invited in their masters. Dr. Catherine Wright had spent months analyzing tissue samples from the Valthran. As the lead cynobiologist at the International Science Foundation, she had been granted limited access to study their biology, ostensibly to ensure medical compatibility between species. Today, something didn't add up. "Look at these cellular markers," she told her assistant, Ben Howard, pointing to her microscope display. "They're identical to the ones we found in those gift plants they brought last spring." Ben frowned. "Could be coincidence. Convergent evolution." Catherine shook her head. "Across completely different solar systems, the statistical probability is essentially zero." She pulled up another scan. "And there's this protein structure I found in both the Valthran skin samples and in the soil near their embassy. It's engineered, designed to subtly alter Earth's ecosystem." Miles away, Jack Powell was making discoveries of his own. Hidden in the complex Valthran transmissions were encrypted data packets. After weeks of work, he had finally broken the encryption. "It's a progress report," he told Olivia Marsh as they met in a secure room swept for listening devices. "They're reporting to some central authority about Earth's preparation status." Marsh's expression tightened. Preparation for what? Integration. Powell handed her the translation. "They've done this before, Olivia. Many times. They find worlds, introduce themselves as friends, slowly take control of key resources, and then..." "Then what?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. "The species becomes part of the consortium, not as equals, as assets." Powell's voice was flat. "There are references to other worlds where resistance occurred. They don't exist anymore." Commander Riley was facing similar revelations aboard the Endeavour. During his second visit to Valthran space, he had managed to slip away from the official tour with the help of Maria Lopes. They'd found their way to a vast archive terminal where Lopes had hacked into the system. "These are the consortium expansion records," she whispered, her fingers flying across the alien interface she'd secretly studied. "Going back over 900 years. Riley scanned the translated text, his blood running cold. Species after species, world after world, all following the same pattern. First contact, technology sharing, resource agreements, integration, exploitation. "Download everything you can," he instructed. "We don't have much time." Back on Earth, the changes were accelerating. Valthran advisors now sat on the boards of major corporations. Their educational centers had begun selecting promising human children for advanced training. Massive mining operations had started in previously protected wilderness areas, extracting minerals that the Valthran claimed were needed for new technology transfers. Dr. Wright had begun testing soil and water samples from around these mining sites. The results confirmed her fears, subtle but significant changes to the microbiome, gradually making Earth more suitable for Valthran biology. "They're terraforming our planet," she told Admiral Alan Garcia during a classified briefing. "Not quickly enough for us to notice easily, but it's happening." Garcia, one of the few military leaders who had been suspicious of the aliens from the beginning, nodded grimly. "We've seen the same pattern with their defensive installations. They claim they're protecting Earth, but the weapons all point downward." That evening, Wright, Powell, Riley, Marsh, and Garcia met in an old bunker 30 feet below the Pentagon, one of the few places they were certain wasn't monitored by Valthran technology. "It's worse than we thought," Riley said, displaying the data Lopes had stolen. "Earth isn't just another conquest. We're a strategic location for them, a gateway to resources in this entire sector." "How long before full integration?" Garcia asked. Powell's expression was grim. "Based on their timetables, 18 months. Then humans become officially designated as a protected subsidiary species." "Which means what, exactly?" Wright asked. "Breeding programs, labor assignments, controlled population centers." Powell couldn't keep the disgust from his voice. "We become livestock." Marsh looked at each of them. "Then we have 18 months to ensure that never happens." Outside, a Valthran ship passed silently overhead, its lights pulsing gently in the night sky, like a false star guiding humanity toward extinction. Admiral Alan Garcia stared at the holographic display, showing Earth's increasingly limited defensive capabilities. 2 years into the Valthran alliance, humanity's military had been systematically weakened under the guise of peace. They'd left us nearly defenseless, he told the small group gathered in the underground facility they now called Haven. Most of our space-capable weapons have been upgraded with Valfran tech that they can disable remotely. The faces around him were grim but determined. Commander Riley had returned from his third mission to Valfran space with crucial intelligence. Dr. Wright had brought her latest research on Valfran biological vulnerabilities. Jack Powell and Olivia Marsh represented what remained of human diplomatic independence. "We can't fight them directly," Riley said. "Not yet, but we've identified 17 former military installations that are still off their monitoring grid." Garcia nodded. "I've already begun moving trusted personnel to those locations. We're calling it the SHIELD Network." While they spoke, across the globe, a quiet resistance was taking shape. In Silicon Valley, programmers wrote code that could potentially disrupt Valfran communications. In university labs, scientists studied captured Valfran technology, looking for weaknesses. In shipyards officially building trade vessels, engineers secretly modified the designs. "The Valfran have a blind spot," Powell explained, pulling up his latest analysis. "They're so confident in their superiority that they don't believe we could possibly develop countermeasures. Their arrogance is our opportunity." Dr. Wright displayed her findings next. "Their biology relies heavily on specific radiation frequencies for cellular regeneration. I've developed a prototype device that could disrupt this process. Non-lethal, but potentially incapacitating." Marsh, who still maintained her official position at the IDC, had the most dangerous role. She smiled at the Valfran representatives during diplomatic functions, while secretly coordinating humanity's resistance. "They're planning to announce the formal integration schedule next month," she informed the group. "Once that happens, they'll implement full monitoring of all government officials. Our window is closing." Outside Haven, the situation grew worse daily. Nations that resisted Valfran influence faced severe economic sanctions. Food shortages appeared in non-compliant regions. Children in Valfran education centers began showing behavioral changes, displaying unsettling loyalty to consortium ideals over human values. Garcia's plan had 3 components: defense, development, and departure. While they couldn't match Valfran military power yet, they could create enough protective capability to buy time. The development teams worked on adapting and improving the alien technology. But most controversial was the departure strategy. Luna Base has been expanded underground, hidden from their satellites, Riley explained, showing the secret construction. "We've also established 3 deep space construction facilities disguised as research outposts." Powell's team had discovered that certain regions of space were less monitored by the consortium, places they could potentially flee to if Earth became unsalvageable. "We're building Orcs," Garcia said simply, "while hoping we never need them." The greatest challenge was secrecy. The Valfran had informants everywhere, humans who believed the aliens truly offered a better future or were simply paid well for information. Marsh had created an elaborate system of compartmentalized information, ensuring no single breach could compromise everything. 3 months into the resistance, they faced their first major test. A Valfran security team raided a lab in Buenos Aires, where SHIELD technology was being developed. Dr. Wright's colleague, Frank Alvarez, destroyed the prototype and all research data seconds before they breached the door. They tortured him for information, Marsh reported, her voice tight with anger. He told them nothing. Garcia looked at each member of the core team. "We honor his sacrifice by succeeding. Accelerate all programs. If they're getting suspicious, our timeline just got shorter." That night, in households across the world, parents whispered to children about human history, human values, human determination. Small resistance symbols began appearing in graffiti, in art, in music. Humanity was bending under Valfran pressure, but a steel core remained unbroken. And deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the first true human starship took shape, built by human hands with technology the Valfran didn't know they understood. They named it Defiance. The Valthran High Emissary entered the United Nations General Assembly with his entourage, their skin shifting through patterns of blue and gold that humans now recognized as expressions of authority. The chamber fell silent as he took the podium. Distinguished representatives of Earth, the emissary began, his translator device giving his words a pleasant, almost musical quality. The time has come to formalize our relationship. The consortium extends an invitation for Earth's complete integration. Screens around the chamber displayed the proposed integration plan. Resource management would fall under consortium control. Human reproduction would be optimized through genetic programs. Education would be standardized across the planet using Valthran curricula. In exchange, humans would receive Category 3 citizenship status within the consortium. Olivia Marsh, seated with the diplomatic corps, kept her expression carefully neutral despite the fury building inside her. This wasn't an invitation. It was a death sentence for human autonomy. The emissary continued, "Given Earth's strategic importance, we require your answer within 7 days. We trust you will make the correct decision for your species' future." The implied threat hung in the air. Several world leaders shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded eagerly, already bought with promises of personal power within the new order. That evening, the UN Security Council met in emergency session. Marsh watched as nations argued bitterly, unity crumbling under Valthran pressure. They've promised China expanded territory management rights in exchange for supporting integration, she told Powell over their secure communication line afterward. The European Union is divided. Russia is threatening to accept unilaterally if others delay. Powell's voice was grim. "Tell Garcia we're moving to Exodus Protocol. We're out of time." Across the planet, the hidden resistance network activated. Dr. Wright worked through the night, finalizing her disruption device. The SHIELD technology, rebuilt after the Buenos Aires raid, underwent its final tests in an underground facility beneath the Atacama Desert. Commander Riley led a team preparing the secret fleet. What had started as a contingency plan was now their primary option. Humanity couldn't fight the Valthran directly, but they could disappear. 3 days after the ultimatum, Powell made a crucial discovery. While monitoring consortium communications, he intercepted messages revealing a Valthran battle fleet approaching the solar system, hidden behind Saturn. "This was never going to be a choice," he told Garcia, showing him the evidence. "They're preparing to take Earth by force if we refuse." Garcia's face hardened. "Then we give them what they expect. Call Marsh. Tell her to negotiate for time." The next day, Marsh stood before the Valthran High Emissary. "Earth accepts integration," she said, her voice steady despite the lie. "However, we request a transition period of 3 months to prepare our people and systems." The emissary's skin rippled with patterns that Powell had decoded as amusement and contempt. "The consortium grants your request. Preparations will begin immediately for the formal integration ceremony." As Valthran ships took up positions around Earth, seemingly monitoring compliance, humanity enacted its most daring deception. On the surface, governments began reorganizing to accommodate consortium requirements. Citizens received integration information packets. Infrastructure adjustments commenced. But beneath this compliant exterior, the Exodus Protocol accelerated. The resistance network activated sleeper cells in every major city. Wright's disruption technology was mass-produced in hidden facilities. The SHIELD generators were installed on the secret fleet. 5 weeks before the integration deadline, Garcia gathered the core leadership team in Haven. The holographic display showed hundreds of small dots representing their hidden armada. "Phase 1 is complete," Riley reported. "The colony ships are fully stocked and crewed. The defensive fleet is armed with Wright's technology. Transport systems are in place for the mass evacuation." Garcia looked at each of them. "We can save perhaps 4 billion people. The rest will need to follow later in the secondary wave." "What about those who want to stay?" asked Wright. "Their choice," Garcia answered quietly. "But no one stays without knowing the truth." Powell checked his tablet as an alert came through. Valthran Advance Fleet has entered Earth orbit. 6 dreadnoughts, multiple support vessels. Then we're out of time, Garcia said. Begin the countdown. Humanity walks away in 3 weeks. Outside, Valthran ships gleamed in the sunlight, their crews confident in their imminent victory, unaware that Earth's apparent surrender was humanity's greatest act of defiance. The Valthran integration fleet filled Earth's skies, their massive ships hovering above major cities in a show of overwhelming force. Citizens looked up with expressions ranging from fear to resignation to carefully hidden defiance. High Emissary Nexer addressed the world from a platform erected before the United Nations building. Behind him stood Earth's ostensible leaders, their faces carefully neutral as global cameras broadcast the event. Today marks the beginning of Earth's glorious future within the consortium, Nexer announced, his translator making his voice sound almost paternal. Your transition teams have performed admirably. Integration will proceed as scheduled in 3 weeks. What the Valthran couldn't see was happening in homes and community centers across the planet. The Resistance had distributed rights research showing the true nature of integration, the gradual replacement of human culture, the controlled breeding programs, the eventual reduction of the human population to manageable numbers. Remember the evacuation zones, parents told children in whispers. Remember the signal. Remember who we are. In her official capacity, Olivia Marsh stood on the platform beside Nexer, smiling diplomatically while sending coded messages through subtle hand gestures to Resistance observers in the crowd. The Valthran, confident in their victory, never noticed. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Garcia and Commander Riley prepared the hidden fleet. What had begun as 13 vessels had grown to over 500, built in secret underwater facilities and concealed beneath the polar ice caps. Final systems check complete, reported Lieutenant Kelly, now Riley's executive officer on the flagship Defiance. Wright's disruption field generators are online and ready, shields at maximum capacity. Riley nodded, studying the tactical display. And the evacuation transports. Positioned at all primary gathering points, the Valthran still think they're atmospheric stabilization units. Kelly couldn't help a tight smile. Their arrogance blinds them. In her laboratory, Dr. Wright made final adjustments to the planetary disruption network. The system, disguised as environmental monitoring equipment, would temporarily disable Valthran technology across Earth, creating the window needed for the mass evacuation. Field tests successful, she told her assistant. We'll have 48 minutes once activated. The Resistance had spread a simple message through underground channels. When the lights flicker 3 times, go to your designated area. Bring only what you can carry. Trust the plan. 1 week before Integration Day, the Valthran increased their security measures. Random identity checks began in cities. Curfews were implemented for the safety of citizens during the transition period. Valthran observers were stationed in government offices, monitoring communications. Powell, working from a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, intercepted a troubling transmission. They're getting suspicious, he told Garcia via their secure channel. They had noticed the unusual movement patterns. We need to accelerate. That night, in cities around the world, the lights flickered 3 times. Millions of people calmly left their homes, carrying small bags, moving to parks, stadiums, and other open areas that had been designated as celebration gathering places for integration. The Valthran observers, seeing the crowds forming, reported that humans were enthusiastically preparing for their new status within the consortium. Instead, they were saying goodbye to their home planet. At precisely 3:00 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, Dr. Wright activated the disruption field. Across Earth, Valthran technology sputtered and failed. Their ships, suddenly unable to maintain power, drifted in orbit. Their communications went silent. Their weapons systems failed. In that moment of confusion, thousands of hidden transport vessels, previously camouflaged as everything from water towers to small hills, activated. Advanced teleportation technology, reverse-engineered from Valfran systems and improved by human innovation, began transferring millions of people to the waiting evacuation fleet. On the Valfran command ship, High Emissary Nexer watched in growing horror as his screen showed massive energy signatures appearing from impossible locations. Human vessels, far more advanced than anything the consortium had allowed, rose from oceans, emerged from mountain ranges, and decloaked in Earth orbit. Impossible, he whispered as his systems slowly came back online. They couldn't have hidden this. They couldn't have understood our technology so quickly. But humanity had understood. They had learned. And now, they were leaving. As the disruption field began to fade, Admiral Garcia gave the order that humanity had been preparing for. All vessels, execute jump sequence. Exodus protocol is now active. High Emissary Nexer stood in the empty plaza where New York's Central Park once bustled with life. His attendants scanned the area again, their devices showing the same impossible result. No human life signs for miles. Where are they? He demanded, his skin flashing angry reds and yellows. Search again. Similar scenes played out across Earth. Valfran search parties found abandoned cities, empty homes with meals still warm on tables, and vacant schools with lessons half-written on boards. In just 48 minutes, billions of humans had simply vanished. Aboard the Defiance, Admiral Garcia watched Earth grow smaller on the viewscreen. Around his flagship, hundreds of vessels carried humanity to their new beginning. The evacuation hadn't been perfect. They'd managed to save just over 3 billion people in the first wave. But the remaining humans on Earth now knew the truth and had gone into hiding with plans for later evacuation. Report on pursuit vessels, Garcia ordered. Commander Riley studied his console. Valfran fleet is attempting to organize, but our disruption field damaged their primary systems. They can't track us through the jump points we're using. The jump technology had been humanity's greatest achievement. Improving on stolen Valfran designs, Earth scientists had developed a method to travel through regions of space the consortium considered impassable. On the medical deck, Dr. Wright monitored the condition of the evacuees. Most are adapting well to the transition, she told Garcia over the comm. The temporary hibernation process worked better than expected. In the communication hub, Powell intercepted the frantic Valfran transmissions. They're calling for reinforcements, he reported with grim satisfaction. Their superiors are not pleased. Back on Earth, Olivia March had remained behind with a small diplomatic team. As planned, she requested a meeting with Nexer and the consortium leadership. The Valfran commander glared at her, his translator barely containing his fury. Explain this treachery. Where have your people gone? Marsh smiled calmly. They've gone where you can't follow. Humanity has left. Impossible. Nexer's skin pulsed with disbelief. No species can evacuate an entire planet. We didn't take everyone, Marsh admitted. Some chose to remain hidden on Earth. Others will be retrieved later. But the majority of humanity has departed. Your integration has failed. She handed him a small data device. This contains our message to the consortium. We call it the Declaration of Human Independence. The message was simple. Humanity rejected consortium control but wished no conflict. They would establish their own path among the stars. Any attempt to pursue would be met with technologies the Valfran didn't know humans possessed. You can't survive alone, Nexer insisted. The galaxy is dangerous. You need our protection. No, Marsh replied firmly. What we needed was respect. You offered subjugation disguised as partnership. You pushed too far, and so humanity walked away. As Marsh spoke, the human Exodus fleet executed its final jump. The technology they'd developed allowed them to travel to regions the Valfran had never explored, a network of solar systems beyond consortium reach. The first colony ship entered orbit around a blue-green world they had named Haven. As humans awoke from hibernation, they saw their new home through viewport windows. Children pressed their hands against the glass, their eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. On the bridge of Defiance, Garcia received confirmation. As each ship arrived safely, final vessel accounted for, Riley announced, "The exodus is complete." Garcia addressed the fleet, his voice carrying to all ships. "Today marks humanity's rebirth. We left Earth not in defeat, but in defiance. The consortium thought they could own us. Instead, they taught us to be free." In the weeks that followed, humans began settling their new worlds. Cities rose on alien shores. Farms sprouted in foreign soil. Children played under unfamiliar stars. And in a secure facility on the new capital world, scientists and military planners continued their work. Earth wasn't forgotten. The remnants of humanity left behind would be rescued. And if the Valfrin ever found them again, they would discover a very different human civilization, one that remembered the lesson of their first encounter. Never again would humanity allow itself to be subjugated. Never again would they be anyone's property. And if pushed, they would simply walk away, taking with them the indomitable spirit that made them human. The Deep Space Monitoring Station in Nevada detected the signal at 3:42 a.m. What began as an anomalous pattern quickly revealed itself as something unprecedented, a deliberate transmission from beyond our solar system. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth had confirmed it. Within days, the preliminary decryption suggested language. Within weeks, humanity understood they were no longer alone. "It's an invitation," said Dr. Paul Kelly, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights poring over the data. "The Galactic Concord, they call themselves. 5 major species claiming dominion over 3 spiral arms. And they've finally noticed us." The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all nations agreed. This moment would define human history. They needed someone exceptional to represent Earth. Alan Foster sat alone in his apartment when the call came. At 42, he had brokered peace in 3 seemingly intractable conflicts and negotiated trade agreements that experts had deemed impossible. His understanding of human psychology was unmatched, but more importantly, he understood power, how it worked, how it corrupted, and how the powerless could find leverage. "Mr. Foster, the Secretary General requests your immediate presence in New York," the voice on the phone stated without preamble. 6 days later, Alan stood before a hastily assembled committee of world leaders. "We need someone who can think on their feet," the Secretary General explained. "Someone who understands both diplomacy and humanity's best interests. You'll have a team, of course." That team included Lisa Garcia, a cultural anthropologist whose work on cross-cultural conflict resolution had earned her international acclaim, and William Hayes, a linguist who had revolutionized the field of symbolic communication. They would be humanity's first ambassadors to the stars. The construction of UES Horizon had been Earth's most ambitious space project, originally designed as a Mars colony ship. Now repurposed for this mission, it carried humanity's hopes as it accelerated toward the coordinates provided by the Concorde, a space station orbiting Proxima Centauri. "We're making history with every second," Lisa remarked as the 3 of them stared at the view screen showing Earth shrinking behind them. First contact. The dream of generations. William nodded but looked concerned. "I've been studying their language samples. Something feels off about their phrasing. The implied hierarchies in their grammar structure are steep. Very steep." Alan had noticed something too. The invitation had been polite, even gracious on the surface, but contained an undercurrent he recognized from decades of negotiation, the tone of a superior addressing an inferior. He kept this observation to himself, not wanting to bias his team. The journey took 3 months using the experimental drive system. 3 months of preparation, study, and hypothesis. 3 months of humanity collectively holding its breath. When the UES Horizon finally approached the massive structure orbiting Proxima Centauri, all 3 humans stood speechless. The station was enormous, a spinning artificial world that dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. "My God," William whispered, "it's a civilization unto itself." The docking procedure went smoothly, guided by automated systems, As the airlock prepared to open, Alan straightened his jacket. Remember, we represent all of humanity now. First impressions matter. Lisa nodded. Whatever happens, we stay calm and observe everything. And remember our core mission, William added. Learn, connect, and ensure Earth's sovereignty. The airlock hissed open, revealing a delegation of 5 distinctly alien beings. Even through his diplomatic training, Alan couldn't help but notice their body language. Despite their physical differences, he recognized the universal expression of disdain. Earth's first contact with alien life was about to begin, and already Alan Foster sensed they were walking into something far more complex than a simple welcome.